The institution of marriage as one man and one woman existed before our laws existed.
Marriage is a decision that should be defined by our state governments, not at the federal level.
We need leaders who will stand unapologetically in defense of marriage and life.
The United States of America did not create religious liberty. Religious liberty created the United States of America, and is the reason we're here today.
9 potential Republican candidates at the Faith and Freedom Coalition Forum in Iowa last night. 9 of who knows how many eventual candidates in this race. Let's talk about that now again with our roundtable. And Mr. Speaker, we were just talking just before we came on there. This field could continue to grow and grow and grow.
Oh, yeah, this is now maybe the most open field in Republican history. I used to say the most open since 1940, but they've now blown past that. I think we may have 25 candidates.
25 candidates, and we saw Dan Balls, the dean of political reporters for the Washington Post, his column today saying, is anyone afraid of Jeb? One of the things we're seeing is that no one's deterred from getting into the race, and every week, this week it's Marco Rubio, someone else climbing up into the top tier.
Well, and Rubio's rise, and right now many people call him the frontrunner, most symbolizes what Dan is talking about, both the wide openness and Jeb Bush's vulnerability. Rubio, someone who the conventional wisdom was just a few months ago, wouldn't even run if Jeb Bush ended up in the race, so close to him and sharing a Florida base. I think right now you still have a top tier of Bush, Walker, and Rubio, pending John Kasich maybe entering the race. But if Jeb Bush falters at all, if he has to fight for this nomination, I think then you've got up to 10 people who could be the nominee. And as the Speaker said, we've never had a situation
John
like that.
Jeb Bush himself says he knows he's going to have to fight for this nomination.
Well, he's going to have to fight for it, but I think the most amazing thing is the conventional wisdom, if you talk to people who work for other Republican potential or current candidates, is they all say the same thing to you. They all believe this. They say, I don't know who Jeb Bush's voters are in the Republican Party. I don't know who is for him. Not apart from the donor class, we can't find the constituents in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. They're going to be for him, and that creates the perception that there's no risk in going after him. If he doesn't have any voters out there, why not me?
Is that good for Democrats or bad?
It's good for Democrats. We saw that in 2012 because, you know, when you're in the primary season and you're trying to rally the so-called faithful and go so far to the right that you perhaps, you know, get off the field, it helps Democrats to continue to focus on what's important to the American people, the economy. And you know what? The Republicans are on a shopping spree, and that's a good thing. One of the reasons why we constantly talk about Hillary Clinton is because there's no Democratic opponent yet to Hillary Clinton. So the media seems to want to fill in that, you know, that particular void. But on the Republican side, very interesting to see these candidates compete over the weekend.
And as they compete, as the lead shifts off every single week, it does remind me of the dynamic in 2012 where Romney comes in as the putative front runner, but every week a different candidate seems to rise to the top. You had several weeks at the top of the field.
I like those weeks. No, look, I think but what's going to make this fascinating is, first of all, that there's a generational shift. You look at a 43-year-old Marco Rubio, Hillary Clinton. Look at Ted Cruz, Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's a whole generation. For that matter, Scott Walker, I think, is 46. Hillary Clinton. I mean, you're going to have a younger generation of new ideas, new approaches, and their speeches actually all direct towards some kind of vision of the future. They spend much more time talking about how you get America growing again, et cetera, than they do about Hillary Clinton.
Say four things about Jeb Bush that we shouldn't overlook. He'll raise the most money, maybe by a lot. He's the most presidential in demeanor. I think he's clearly, right now, the most obviously ready to be president, and I still believe he's the one the Clintons fear the most. Those are four big things which, if the Republican nomination process goes by the traditional rules, will make him the nominee.
Right, and Donna Brazil, on that point, one of the things Jeb Bush is doing by pushing back on issues like immigration, on Common Core, trying to preserve some sense of holding the center if he actually gets the nomination.
If he gets the nomination, because again, these activists are looking not just for somebody who's electable, who can win in the fall, but they're looking for somebody who will champion their issues. And Jeb Bush is still trying to become that champion. You know, you mentioned age. It's not the age of the candidate, it is the age of the ideas. And the ideas that many of these Republican candidates are out there promoting are ideas that are out of sync with the American people and the population on inclusiveness and diversity, marriage equality, which George is going to talk about. So I wouldn't worry about Hillary Clinton's age. I worry about the ideas of these candidates who want to take us back to another bygone era.
On the other hand, you have a John Kasich who carried 86 out of 88 counties.
In Ohio.
In Ohio. You have a Scott Walker who got reelected despite an enormous effort to defeat him. I mean, you've got some people out there who understand how to be positive, how to occupy the center in terms of fights. and who I think would be very formidable opponents.
On John Kasich, he is making more noises that make it look like he's going to get in.
Yeah. Fascinating guy who the Speaker knows well. He would like to run. He's a classic person now thinking about this because he looks at the field and says, if these are the people who might be our nominee, why not me? Because of his record in Ohio, not just electorally, but in terms of governance. One of the things he's showing is a McCain, vintage McCain 2000 openness to saying whatever's on his mind. He's always been like this. There's an authenticity there. It will create controversy for him if he runs, but he's setting the standard as much as anybody else and saying, counterpoise to Hillary Clinton, I'm going to speak what I really believe the country needs. It's effective with a lot of constituencies.
I mean, and look, I mean, you downplayed a second ago the electoral element of it. The fact that he won more than a quarter of the African-American vote in Ohio is a kind of an astonishing thing and gives him a capacity to be a great general election candidate. But going back to the earlier point, which is, what is the Republican Party today? Do the old rules still apply where the establishment frontrunner wins? Or do you have to now, because the other wing of the party has gotten stronger, do you have to straddle those two wings? I think that's why Marco Rubio and Scott Walker are both strong candidates, because they can play with the establishment and they can play with the grassroots. Kind of a problem for Kasich and a problem for Bush, because they don't play on the other side as well as they play strictly on the establishment.
My final question for the Speaker. You said right at the top you could have 25 candidates in the end. We're about, the first votes will probably be next January. How is the field going to sort itself out?
The American people will sort it out with remarkable speed once it starts. But as David Broder once reminded us, all of us will talk from now until the first Iowa caucus, and nothing will have happened.
Yeah.
But we'll all have to fill the space. And then the American people start to work. And I suspect by April we'll have a pretty clear nominee.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, thank you all very much.